Hello viewers, welcome to our program on Immigration and You. I am your immigration attorney Michael Fulwani, and once again we have with us attorney David Nachman, my law partner. David.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Michael. Pleasure to be here with you always.
Okay, so today's program we're going to start with the cutoff dates for the month of April 2014. In the family preference categories, the first preference, which is for the unmarried sons and daughters over the age of 21 of U.S. citizens, advanced by 3 weeks to February 22nd, 2007. The family 2A category, which is for the spouses and unmarried sons and daughters under the age of 21 of green card holders, no movement, date remains the same, September 8, 2013. The family 2B category, which is for the unmarried sons and daughters over the age of 21 of green card holders, advances by 7 weeks to October 22nd, 2006. And the family third preference, which are the married sons and daughters of the U.S. citizens, advances by 4 weeks to July 15, 2003. And the family fourth preference, which are the brothers and sisters of U.S. citizens, advances by 2 weeks to November 22nd, 2001. Now, the employment preference categories. The first preference, which is for the priority workers, is current for all the countries. The employment second preference, which is for the advanced degree holders, is current for most of the countries except India. India, unfortunately, no advance movement. Date remains the same, November 15, 2004. The employment third preference, which are the professionals and skilled workers, for most of the countries except India, advances by 4 weeks to October 1, 2012. Unfortunately for India, no advance movement here also, and date remains the same, September 15, 2003. Same thing for the other workers category, all other categories except India, 4 weeks to October 1, 2013. And for the India also, there is no advance movement. Date remains the same, September 15, 2003. Unfortunately, as you can see, employment preference categories, none of them advanced from the last month. So that's a bad news in a way. The fourth preference, special immigrants, which includes religious workers and priests and all that, is current for all the countries. And the employment fifth preference, which are for the investors of $1 million or $500,000, is also current for all the countries. Now, there is some kind of feeling that going forward in maybe few months, looks like the prediction is that there may be a cutoff date for the EB5 categories because there's a lot more interest and applications coming in. I think weren't they talking the same thing about employment first preference at some point may establish a priority date?
Mostly, I think the EB5, I've been reading about the possibility of a cutoff date because of the large number of Chinese nationals who are taking advantage of the EB5 classification. But Michael, I think that this is probably a good time for us to mention that anyone who obviously is feeling pressure from the long waits in the classifications should consider the possibility of cross-chargeability, which means that if you're married to an individual from a different country, if you're an Indian and you have significant backlogs and you're married to someone from Bangladesh or Sri Lanka or one of the other countries, then of course they don't have backlogs, so you can use cross-chargeability to take advantage of that. And also what it does is it takes us to the issue of immigration reform, and that is that, right now, Michael, I'm sure you're going to discuss this, is that, immigration reform is back on the front burner. The House of Representatives is talking about the possibility of advancing H.R. 15, which is the new bill in the House, and they're thinking about doing a special type of procedure to advance that the bill out of the House of Representatives. And if that happens, of course, many of these priority date backlogs and issues will become hopefully something of the past.
When you say that happens, you are basically talking about the Senate bill that was passed by the Senate. Is the same bill that they are, more or less, that HR
right, the HR 15 was the mirror image in the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
And I guess what happened was the Pelosi got upset that it wasn't moving, and so what she did was she is seeking to invoke a special procedure to advance that bill through the House of Representatives.
Actually, they tried their best with the Speaker of the House to introduce the bill, and under the pressure of his own colleagues, the Republicans, he did not do that.
Correct.
And this is a good news in a way, but it still is uncertain as to whether House will pass it or not pass it. We just praying, we hope that the good sense will prevail upon our Republican House people, and senators already did it. And if that gets passed, inshallah, that is going to be the biggest thing for our viewers and all the people.
Exactly, and I think I'd like to point out to our viewers that we as immigration professionals, of course, take a very important role in trying to convince Congress that immigration reform is something that needs to be done. And this is April, and every year in April we have what's called the National Day of Action, where immigration lawyers from across the country go down to Washington, D.C. We convene on a Thursday in the middle of the month, and what we try to do is we speak to the congressional representatives themselves. We sit down with them or their representatives, and what we try to do is convince them how important immigration reform is to our nation as a whole. So that will be happening in the middle of the month.
So while we are on the same subject, let's talk a few minutes about what President Obama can do, because his frustration. I mean, I just read the newspaper today, a large number of Latino people, they don't want to vote either for Republicans or for Democrats. And they are all very much frustrated with President Obama not putting hard work or being forceful in getting the bill passed. Right. So we were earlier talking about in the previous programs that it may be a good idea for the president to see what he can do with administratively. Remember that provisional waiver, that was one of the best things that he did. The DACA was another thing that he administratively did.
Exactly.
Like that, there are some other ways, some other more of that. Of course, some people saying he should simply say that people who are illegally in this country should not be deported. It's probably a large order. Probably he's much concerned about the opposition from the Congress, that he's bypassing the Congress. But smaller things. Let us talk about the children over 21 who are left out. Let's brother file for the sister, sister file for the brother, the fourth preference category. The brother, sister, and the spouse came in, but children crossed 21. And even with the CSPA adjustment, under which children who age out are still eligible, even that did not work. So there are a lot of those children who are left behind. Now the parent now files the petition for them. They are giving them the new priority date. The new priority date will be F2B category, which is waiting for 7 or 8 years. Right. On this issue, we both know that some of the courts, federal courts, have held that in that kind of situation, when the parent files a petition under F2B, he should be given the old priority date. Now, if I was a president, and I'm not, if I was a president, I will say that these are the decisions of the federal courts, and I think it is more appropriate for the administration to follow the court decisions and administratively adopt that policy, because the court says the interpretation of the law. So it's nothing to do with the legislation. They say this is the way we interpret, and this is the right way to do it. Administration can say yes, that is correct, we agree. And how about that? What do you say to that?
Well, I think that it's a difficult issue because there's so much politics involved. I mean, take a look at what's happened with the CSPA. The Supreme Court heard arguments many months ago on the CSPA, and they still have yet to issue a determination on that particular issue. And the reason that they're hiding behind is to say that, well, there are still administrative issues at play. So what you have is you have a battle in the political powers of our nation, and unfortunately, this is politics. And but I think that the president has a tremendous amount of leverage. He's already asserted that leverage. He's already allowed for deferred action for military families. He's allowed for DACA, which is not regulatory. It's actually a form of prosecutorial discretion. And I think what the president has clearly made, and clearly brought to the forefront is that he's going to do something if Congress can't act. And it'll be very interesting to see what it is that he actually ends up doing. I think the play by the Hispanic lobby groups is an interesting one, because I think that they're not going to throw their weight behind either party yet until they figure out who's willing to move somewhere. I think that they're holding that out as a carrot in front of the horse, so to speak. Yeah. And what they're doing is they're waiting to see who's going to move on the immigration, and that's the carrot, because they are such a powerful lobby Okay, and they know they're powerful. So what they're doing is they're saying, we're waiting to see who's going to move, and then what we'll do is we'll throw our weight where the people move. Because if they throw their weight behind the Democrats, then what's going to happen is the Republicans are going to throw up their hands in the House and say, it doesn't matter what we do. If we don't do anything, we're still going to lose the vote. So I think that that's the carrot in front of the horse.
What you're saying, they should hold the carrot in one hand and move from one horse to another horse to see which horse is willing to bite that.
That's right.
No,
and I'm not calling our representative horses, but maybe other types of animals.
Seriously speaking, I personally think that President Obama has the discretion to administratively do that. But let us see what
Absolutely.
happens.
There's a tremendous amount of leverage there.
What he has been doing basically, again, let's go back to this other issue of deportations. In the maximum number of people have been deported in Obama time, I have a number here, until of this period, in the last 2 years, 2 million people have been deported, the maximum ever under any presidency.
That's
and
why
he was playing the game in the sense that by doing it, he will win the heart of the Republicans that yes, administration is doing what the best and the illegal immigration issues is being resolved, and then come forward and pass the CIR.
Well, that's how he won the term or the nomenclature of deporter-in-chief. That's what they refer to President Obama as. And again, I think it's politics, Michael, and I think you would agree with me. What it's about is that President Obama, I think, has his heart in the right place with regard to immigration reform, but I think that what he's doing is he is trying to figure out what the middle ground is. And in order to keep people happy, or to keep the Republicans happy, the way to do that is to increase the deportations. So what he's doing is he's essentially serving the cornerstone of the comprehensive immigration reform with one hand, and hoping with the other hand that he's going to be able to pass the good provisions of the bill, which hopefully we'll see this spring, but it's anyone's guess.
But it's not happening. The problem that I have is not happening, and it's about time for the president to realize and come forward with the administrative process.
I absolutely agree, but the problem is that doing nothing is always an option.
Yeah.
And because doing nothing is an option, sometimes that's what Congress does.
Well, we are running out of time, David. A very interesting subject, and we could talk a little bit more about in the forthcoming programs, and we thank you very much for being on the program. And
thank you so much,
all of
Michael.
you for watching the program. Please keep watching us every Saturday and Sunday on ITV. Thank you very much and goodbye.